Yes.
Has this program been implemented outside of America, and if it has, are the results similar to what you've presented to us?
I send out my manual to anybody who asks for it, and so I've sent out hundreds, you know, including to other countries, but I've never been part of implementation in other countries, and other countries, as far as I know, have not done the research, or let me know if they did it. If they did it, they didn't let me know. So I am really excited by this opportunity.
What was the sample size for the results you showed us there?
First group I worked with, 40 students I worked with, and 40 were in the control group. In the Rochester data, there are over 100 that were being worked with. The Rochester City Schools in New York, it's a town with a lot of poverty because they used to have some big, like Kodak and Eastman were in the town, and they've hit hard times, and so a lot of poverty in that town. And the school system decided to have as many mentors they possibly could have. So there were over 100 youth that were being mentored, and maybe 70 in the control group in that one.
It's a bit of hope. Those children's grades might be dropping, but their performance in relation to themselves is improving. And that's the problem with grades. It's compared to the rest of their age group, but compared to themselves, it's a steady improvement. So congratulations, and that's another way of interpreting your data.
Yes, that is another way of looking at it.
Does the quality of the mentoring very much depend on the personality of the mentor?
It depends on the skills of the mentor. I'll try to use my own way of looking at things and say, not so much the personality, but the skills. Yes, it is really important that the mentor work as hard as possible to find one positive thing to acknowledge every week. And of course, if you get to know youth, just getting to school might be positive for that youth. They may need to drop off their younger brother and sister and get medicine for their grandmother and walk to school because they missed the bus. And so for the mentors must be able to find that one little positive thing to acknowledge and try their darndest to turn a negative thing, like the teacher might say, this kid isn't motivated, I don't know how to motivate them, to turn that into something positive and say, you know, your teacher really wants you to be able to learn. So let's figure out how next time I talk to your teacher, they can know that you want to learn too, because I know you do. You know, so that's the important thing about the mentors, is to look for these positives.
I was just wondering about what Dr. Brenna has to say about the role and involvement of parents in the whole process, either the referral process or the actual program in schools. And the second question, if I just put it out, is about possibly your involvement with ethnic groups in schools, because I'm working as a visiting teacher for Travers, so I'm just interested if you have any comments to make on that.
The parents are essential. We've, in the very first year of doing the program, one Rutgers doctoral student came to me and he said, I'd like to, you know, do a study to help you in your decisions about this program. And I said, well, engaging the parents is so hard. Could you do a study and tell me if engaging the parents is important? Turns out it's absolutely essential. All that work, I spent 2 days in every school that first year, working all day. If we didn't engage the parents, I had no impact at all. In other words, those kids weren't any better at the end of the first year than the control group. And the way we engage the parents is, again, with positive messages. So after we establish a relationship with the youth so that they see that their mentor isn't such a bad person and maybe even will bring value to their lives, we'll call home and we'll say, we are enjoying working with your child. They're not used to that. They're used to getting a call from the school saying, your child has just broken law, da 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 da, and these are the consequences. So we're calling home and we're saying, I'm enjoying working with your child and want you to know that they came to school one more day last week than usual. Whatever you're doing as a parent, keep it up. You know, give them credit. And we do that regularly throughout the program. Is find something positive and communicate with the parents. And talking about ethnic groups, we have a very large Spanish-speaking population in the United States. And so since even though I thought, no, I should have, I haven't learned Spanish. I will go to the Spanish teacher in the school and ask them to write a note to the parent in Spanish along the same lines and put it in a post for the parent. Or these days, I suppose I could email them or text them. And in our urban schools, I spent most of my time in urban schools. We have predominance of minority groups in the United States. So I've just been in a city, Union City, New Jersey, that's 97% Hispanic. The Trenton schools I've spent time in and Rochester are highly African American, 70, 80, 90% African American. So I've definitely worked with different ethnic groups.
I'm a principal in County Dublin, in a County Dublin VEC school, and we have introduced mentoring in our school just last year. And anecdotally, from the little bit that we have done, I would support everything you've said today. It can be hugely successful. I do think, though, it's important that we get allocation for this, and thanks to Dr. Griffin, in our school just this week we have been given a little bit of extra allocation, so we're going to put that into this sort of work again this year because we do think it's successful.
Could I just comment on that?
Yes.
You know, we're in the fortunate position this year that we can help a little bit, but I suppose we're all conscious that we're living in very difficult times, and you know, the teacher allocation as well as everything else, you know, has been affected. But I mean, certainly within our resources, we will continue to support this and initiatives like this as much as we can into the future.
The risk factor for a child is that there is very poor family dynamic.
Yes.
Can we substitute a parent within the school system, say a year head or somebody who takes special interest in the child? Have you ever tried that? Because in the most severe cases, some of our students don't have parental input.
Yes, actually, by the way, that's the third risk factor that I looked for when I went through the records. I looked for, you know, the school achievement, I looked for the behavior problems, and I looked for anything in the records that suggested that there wasn't the close child-parent relationship like a foster child or children who like to stay after school because they didn't want to go home, things like that. Was your question whether another parent would be substituted?
Or another teacher.
Member of staff, somebody who would take special interest in the child within a school, is that person?
Yes, and in my mind, that's what the mentor does. That the mentor is supplementing the parenting that's going on at home and really acting like, you know, they're a parent, being as interested in the child as if they were the parent, but seeing themselves as cooperating with the parent instead of competing with them. Does that answer your question? That's definitely how I conceptualize mentoring, as adding to parenting.
Great. I'm still waiting for something from this hand.
I just wondered how you identified the mentors. Are they all youth workers, and what sort of training were they given before they commenced?
First I learned, and this is trial and error too. I learned that the youth workers need to volunteer. They say they want to do this. Like I once was invited to a school where the head of guidance just said, all my guidance counselors are going to do your program. And I found that some just didn't relate to these kids. Some wanted to work with the college-bound kids. And so a mentor needs to say, I'm interested in the kids